Hi, everybody. It's Jamie Bearse at Zero. You all know me. And I also want to introduce you for the first time ever. It's Courtney Bugler, who is going to be our new CEO come August 7th. As you guys saw from the press release that we put out just a few weeks ago, that Courtney joins us from the Piedmont Park Conservancy. She was also with Race for the Cure, Coleman Foundation, where she led up the More Than Pink series. And Courtney, I'm looking at your resume here. It didn't even dawn on me. You even love dogs too, because you were at the Humane Society, JDRF. So a wealth of experience, a whole lifetime of experience coming to work for prostate cancer patients and families. And just want to introduce you to Courtney, everybody.
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here, and I am really excited to start to interact with all of you. You're the lifeblood of the organization, and I cannot wait to chat with you and meet with you and hear more about your stories.
That's right. And before we dive into that, I just want to share with everybody as a reminder that this CEO search process was planned all the way back out to last November. So it's a planned leadership transition, and the CEO search process was a doozy. We got a firm to help us out with it. There was about 1,100 resumes that came in from all over, and out of them all, we picked the best one. So we absolutely lucked out, and yeah. So I'm distracted because I don't see anybody on here on the Zoom. I imagine everybody is on Facebook and maybe watching along, but I don't see anybody.
There's no webinar format, so we have 40 some people here. We just can't see their faces.
We just can't see them at all. Sounds good. So tell us a bit about yourself, Courtney. What brings you interest? What made you interested in applying for this job specifically? Let's start there.
Well, thanks, Jamie, and thanks to everybody else. I have been so impressed by the team at Zero, the staff, the board, all through the process of being hired, as well as, I mean, the hours and hours that the staff and the board are putting into kind of getting me ready. It's been really impressive. And part of the reason why I'm so humbled and honored to be a part of this organization and to help lead it is because of my personal connection. So as some of you guys saw in the press release and things like that, I am a 17-year cancer survivor myself. I was diagnosed in my late 20s. And my brother was diagnosed with colorectal cancer when he was 23. And my uncle and my father are both prostate cancer survivors. And my dad is living with prostate cancer. And when I tell people about the why of why Zero and why this, I often tell the story of my dad and how for years and years and years, my dad stood next to me as I wore a pink Survivor shirt, and he ran, he biked, he raced, he gave of his own personal volunteer time, and he did that, and he often said it was all in honor of myself and my community. And so when this opportunity came up, it was my chance to give back to him. So I am really excited to sort of pass the baton of that survivor shirt wearing, caregiver giving, and supporter to do this in honor of my father, who is living with prostate cancer, but in honor of my son. I have a 14-year-old son, and as the number one cancer incidence in men, it's something, unfortunately, that is deeply a part of my family's life. And what brought me to nonprofits to begin with was a personal connection to the cause. So for me, almost 20 years later, it's a chance to come full circle. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm really excited to get moving to help improve lives and save lives.
Well, it's fantastic that you bring not only the caregiver experience, but your own personal cancer experience too. And I know that's important to our patients and families, and they will all love to get your thoughts and get your opinion as being a cancer survivor as we continue out to help survivors and patients. Another fantastic thing, and just to tell a quick story, and I said this in staff meeting yesterday when we were together, is that going back early on in my time at the organization and talking to the staff was around, this is over 15 years ago, like 17, 18 years ago. And we started to look at the organization's roots were very much in advocacy and being able to push along prostate cancer research funding and to advance that cause, and being able to branch out from, and we'll get back to that, by the way, and branching out from that and putting together some programs and some more programs other than advocacy, and putting us out there in terms of awareness and getting people talking about prostate cancer and knowing their risk awareness, knowing about early detection, is that we wanted to create the Komen Foundation, but for prostate cancer back in those days. And it was at the time that Komen was, you'd find them on yogurt and shoelaces and on your airline seat and really everywhere else. And I think that it's fantastic, and it's really inspiring from all of the work that you did at the Komen Foundation, and being able to move along Race for the Cure / More Than Pink. And so I just think that it's really wonderful that it's really come full circle, because it goes all the way back early in my career that we set out to really do that same kind of thing that the Komen Foundation was doing and has done, but for prostate cancer. And then you being, just like you said, just coming full circle and being able to help your dad. Now you're able to come along and help take this cause even further to bring it to people who may not even know that they have a prostate still. So I think that's wonderful.
And it's, for me, it's that also that root and advocacy that is so exciting to me. For those of you who don't know, as I dug into all of this, Zero started originally as the National Prostate Cancer Coalition, and it was based on an organization called the National Breast Cancer Coalition, which is an organization that advocates for funding at the government level and at the federal level for funding for disease-specific research. And before I'd even moved into working in nonprofits, I was a really strong community advocate for that organization. And so I had led the state of Georgia and lobbied on the Hill and worked with the Department of Defense and reviewed research grants and been all of those things on the breast cancer side. And so to hear that Zero originally had that same kind of its roots and advocacy there, and in fact, a key part of its mission is still advocating for that same research funding. That is the stuff that makes my heart happy, because I don't believe we are ever going to solve this issue alone. And so the idea of joining together advocates and volunteers and staff and other organizations and systems and the government, that is how we're going to put an end to prostate cancer. And so I'm really excited about the collaborative nature of all that Zero does, not only in advocacy and programming, but it really has roots in what I first started to do myself 20 years ago.
Right. And we've got some people in the room and following along who have come to the summit and taken part in many of our advocacy efforts. And I'm sure that we have more than a few in the room too who have taken part in a consumer review panel at the Congressionally Directed Medical Researches Program at the DoD. And it was really awesome to see that Courtney has also been part of a consumer review panel at the DoD. So that's
Mhm.
fantastic. So you'll be able to, those who are coming along at zero. So at our summit, we usually work with the Prostate Cancer Research Program to try to recruit some new people who can participate in the consumer review panel. So I think it's going to be really wonderful to be able to share your experience. And of course, people will have guys will have their mentor to be able to help them along, but to get your perspective on what it was like for you to be on the consumer review panel, to get them prepared to be on it too, is that's really wonderful.
The fact that there are, and it wasn't always like this, but the fact that more and more government organizations and industry and pharma have realized the strength of the patient voice. And Zero is the voice of the prostate cancer community for patients and caregivers. And so it is really great to see the progress that has been made to give patients a voice in everything from research to drug approvals to discussions of side effects to treatment to overtreatment to screenings and the pros and the cons. For many years, patients didn't have a voice, and if there's one thing that that I'm probably the most proud of in my 20 years working in this field is the strides that have been made to make sure that patient voices are centered in everything that the industry does. And I hope to continue to elevate prostate cancer patient voices wherever we can.
And I was just going to ask you about that, Courtney. And before I do, I want to invite everybody, if you've got questions or comments, please put them in the chat and we'll make sure to get to every one of them or as many as we can. But what would you say to Courtney leading up to this point and joining Zero from your 20-year career? And I covered just some of it very, very quickly. But what are some things that you can point to as being nexus points in your career that you can point to that has really kind of prepared you for coming in at Zero?
Yeah, so the first nonprofit I worked in was the Young Survival Coalition, which was a national organization for young women with breast cancer. So much like many of you and many of our staff and staff in health nonprofits across the country and the world, I joined a nonprofit where I was mission connected. But I was the executive director here in Atlanta, and working directly with survivors and patients and co-survivors and caregivers in Atlanta, which is a very diverse market. It's a place where health disparities and equity is at its most prime. Really, it began opening my eyes that my experience as a college-educated white suburban woman was not everyone's experience. And I was there for 4 years. And most of my time was working to get access and opportunities to underserved communities. And it was also a place where we piloted a lot of programs. So I'm still in Atlanta, by the way. So if you live in the ATL, come and find me. I'd love to have lunch. But Atlanta is an amazing microcosm for our healthcare system as a whole. And it was there. Even now, you see, in Georgia, you've had many hospitals closing and rural hospitals closing because Medicaid isn't giving patients access. We have one of our level 1 trauma centers in Atlanta, right in the center of the city, closed recently. And so the system in Atlanta is a microcosm for what's happening everywhere else. And by working there, it really gave me a window into how partnerships are important, how understanding the communities you're working with and going in are important, and the power of community. There is nothing more powerful than families and friends and churches and coworkers speaking to their colleagues and friends and neighbors about the importance of early detection or awareness, or giving people that little extra push to go get screened. And I saw that firsthand in Atlanta. And that came sort of kind of to a head even more is I was one of the first lay navigators certified at the Harold Freeman Patient Navigation Institute in Harlem. And this is aging me too, but it was really when they started to realize that patient navigation, that, until we can change the system, we've got to give people help to navigate that system. And so being trained as a patient navigator and then launching the first lay navigation program here in Atlanta at Young Survival Coalition for that population was something that was really important to me, because often people don't know what to do and they don't feel like they have a voice. And it's really easy to say, oh, just call your doctor. It's not so easy to say that when you're working two jobs, or when you're not sure what it's going to mean, or when everybody in your family goes to doctors and only bad things happen when they go to doctors. And so the culture or your family is to avoid doctors. And so learning how to help people, guide them through the system, in an ideal world, we wouldn't need it. I'd love it if we could get ourselves where, 0360 is out of business. But in the meantime, programs like that are pivotal to get people the support, help, and access to the treatment they need and the information they need. So those were some key things kind of early on that I think made a difference for me. One of the things that I also think is so important, and one of the things that was really valuable to me when I looked at the suite of programs that Zero does, is its emphasis on peer support. Early on in my time in my own cancer journey, I served as a peer mentor and support on a national hotline, as well as I facilitated support groups. And I personally went to a support group every single week for 5 years. And it was actually a pan cancer group. So it was all different types of cancer. And those people, those relationships, when you were there face to face and you were addressing your fears and your concerns and the challenges of what treatment had done to you or your body or your relationships with your family and your friends, they are invaluable. And I often say that, my doctor saved my body, but it was my support group that saved my soul. And so seeing an organization that was so patient-centric in its value of support groups and peer support was really important to me because of what it did with my journey. And as I moved on and I started in cancer, and then I worked in type 1 diabetes, and I worked with veterans, and then I worked with the puppies and the kittens. And I'm actually surprised that we haven't heard two of my dogs barking yet on this call. And then I kind of worked my way back to cancer again, because that seems to be my touchstone. But what I think I always come back to professionally is those were always opportunities where there was an organization that sort of had reached this amazing level and they were ready to go to the next one. And so professionally, what all of those roles kind of have in common with what I think is the exciting part about being here at Zero is I've become a bit of a sort of next level artist, if you will, of okay, we're here. This has been great. Now, what do we do to go to the next place? And so one of the things that's so exciting to me about this opportunity at Zero is Jamie and your team and the champions and volunteers and all the people that are running and walking and raising money and giving money it has grown immensely. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's only about under 10% of nonprofits have grown since 2020. Most have either remained stagnant or declined. So Zero is part of an amazing small group of national organizations and local ones that have actually continued to thrive in this post-pandemic environment. And what's so exciting to me is the place that you all have taken it to. And when we look at the strategic plan that you guys have laid out, it's really how do we go to the next level? And so I think that some of my background in some of the bigger organizations, as well as, how do we build field structures and how do we scale up these great support programs so we can help even more people. I think that's really where my special sauce is going to be, as I take what I've learned in those places to sort of level up the organization and reach all of those goals that are in the strategic plan. Because Zero is so well positioned to do that, and I'm excited to take it to its next place. Oof, that was a lot of talk. That was a lot.
It's a beautiful answer though, Courtney, and I love really going back to what you'd said on survivor support groups. It may have been the doctors that healed your body, but it was the support groups that healed your mind and soul. So I'm sure that everybody's loving to hear that, as we have us two survivor support groups out there throughout the country, and being able to know that you've actually been in some of these rooms and walk that, as I said before, walk that path and know what it's like to be in a support group, or even being part of a support group leadership and trying to move that along in a particular community or online too. By the way, if somebody's going to take Courtney up on asking she said something about what her special sauce is. You can ask her what her favorite sauce is. You can ask anything of her, I'm told. But let's just say hi to a couple of people as we as we go forward. John Williamson has been a longtime champion. He's also in Atlanta. He looks forward to seeing you. He's in Atlanta as well. ATL. Yeah.
All the cool kids are in Atlanta. Although I will say, a little secret, I'm originally from Chicago, and my heart is always with Chicago, even when the Cubs are losing. But that's okay because I have the Braves, so it's okay.
Right? Yeah,
that might have started a war on Facebook. I don't know. That might have been bad. We'll see.
I don't know. They're both in the National League too. That's tough to pick from. I'm sure that we've got Cubs and Braves fans in here. I want to say hi to Vanita. Hi, Vanita. She's in Mesa, Arizona. Let's see, Ted Healy, an amazing champion. Thanks, Ted, for being here. He says, grateful to have you on board, Courtney. Sean's here. Hey, Chaz. Chaz says, welcome, Courtney. Welcome to part of the Zero fam. Chaz is one of our champions. He's come out to the summit. Chaz, let me know if you've been on the consumer review panel at the TDMRP too. I think maybe I misremember, but he's in San Diego. Dave Moffat also says he's in Atlanta. Welcome, Courtney, and congratulations. Would love to connect and have lunch. There you go. You first.
There we go. I'm excited.
Up on lunch. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Let's see. Cheryl Nicotuck is one of our board members. She says, welcome, Courtney. Happy to have you leading us into the future. And Terry Lee Christina, welcome, Courtney. She's excited to meet you. And one of our amazing champions, Susie Schlerner-Tower, is down in Florida. Maybe you've talked to her. She says, again, welcome, Courtney. Susie's down in Miami, and she looks forward to meeting you in person. I'm just scanning for some questions here. We'll come back to it. John Glass says, welcome, Courtney. Will you be moving to DC? There you go. There's your first question.
I will not be. The one thing that's happened here in this post-pandemic environment is, most of the Zero team is remote. And as the organization has grown, I think only like 10% of the team is based around DC. So I'll be here in Atlanta, but I will be getting on a plane a fair amount. As we know more about kind of what my schedule will be, I know I'm going to Dallas my first week to meet with some support group leaders. I think there's some discussion of being in Chicago for the run walk and then being in DC for something else. So as soon as we know a little bit about what my schedule will be, We will let you guys know when I'm going to be in town because I want to make sure that I can meet as many people as possible and hear about you and your stories and what we can do to help you. So no, I will be. I may or may not be wearing yoga pants right now as we speak while I'm on this Zoom call. So I'll be working from home and then on a plane as needed.
I too may or may not be wearing yoga pants as we speak too. I'm just gonna leave it right there. I want to ask you more about what are you most excited about in the new role, but I also want to draw back to some of the amazing things that has led you to this moment and in your career. And I also want to say I would be remiss in saying that we've known each other now for well before this process of I want to say almost 5 years.
5-ish years.
If you add in the pandemic, I want to say it's probably like 30, 35. I don't know. Yeah. Probably so. But we had first met at a nonprofit conference. And I just want to tell everybody this quick story. So we're at this nonprofit conference and they do this sort of icebreaker thing, the first night of the conference where everybody can come and have a casino night. We're not throwing out real money or anything like that. They give us, I don't know what they give us, a couple hundred like fake money and monopoly money for us to play the roulette wheel or to play blackjack or poker. So we end up at the same table playing poker, which ends up being this huge table. I think, what is it, 12, 15 people, I think, sitting around this table. And Courtney and I end up being like among like the last 3 or 4 people who are left. And Courtney cleans up, right? Tell us about that.
I mean, I don't want to mention too that I actually joined the table late. I think there were maybe 3 or 4 people and I sort of sat down and said, "Hey, what you doing?" And then I took all your money. And I won some amazing Bose headphones that I still use to this day. They were great. But yeah, I grew up playing poker with my family. That's how I learned math. So I am up for any sort of charity poker tournament anybody ever wants to do.
There we go.
There we go.
Charity poker maybe coming to Zero. I love it. Count me in. Although not at your table because I'll get crushed.
I also, I passed that on. My son is 14. He learned blackjack when he was about 7, and he is quite the Texas Hold'em player himself at this point too. So it's in the genes, apparently.
Yeah, a bunch of ringers in the family. Love it. So, what are you most excited about stepping into the new role?
I'm excited. It's a really big question. So there's 2 things I'm excited about. I am excited about elevating other people's stories and other people's needs. So I'm really excited to be sort of back in a space that I'm used to. But where quite honestly, the focus isn't on me. So I'm really excited to hear other people's stories and find out how we can help elevate those to make change systemically. I'm excited and I'm excited sort of organizationally for the potential of this organization. It has done so much in its relatively, when you think about nonprofit life, relatively short amount of time. I am a person that I am not like an incremental kind of person. I like big things and I want to make big things happen. And Zero is so well positioned to kind of go to the next cusp of big things. I've been telling the staff already, one of the things that's mentioned in the strategic plan is being a household name. And I've been telling the staff so far, and I told the board that like one of the ways that I want us to get to being a household name is to act like we already are. Again, we're the voice for the prostate cancer community. And so I'm excited for the potential of what that could mean in this next phase of the organization. And I will say I'm inherently I'm a learner and a sort of tinkerer. So I'm really excited to learn more about the organization, and put fresh eyes to some of the things that we've been doing and saying, okay, like Jamie's been really great at being like, hey, we do this and we do it really well, but we want to help twice as many people. And we got to figure out how to scale it, how to make it happen, and how do we utilize volunteers, and how do we raise more money for it, and how do we bring on the right staff to make it happen. So I'm really excited to dive into those questions, because driving growth is kind of been what I've specialized in my professional career. But when it gets down to it, I'm just really excited to sit down with people and hear their stories and hear how we can help more people. It's being mission connected is deeply a part of my DNA. If you were to, if you Google me or see the press release or you go on LinkedIn, I've spent a lot of time in the recent past on the sort of the fundraising and marketing side of it. But I am a mission first kind of leader. And so no matter what we do, it's all designed to how are we going to save more lives and help more people. And so yeah, I'm there's some personal things I'm excited to do, and then just the opportunity for growth and sort of scale is exciting. And also, if I might say, I'm really excited to lead this awesome team. Everybody I've met so far at Zero, man, I'm sure many of you have met Zero staff. They are some smart cookies, and deeply motivated, feeling folks who really want to make change and make the world a better place. And that's an exciting thing to be a part of. So yeah, I'm excited about a lot of things, I guess.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it too. I mean, we've talked several times. I'm thrilled at the prospect of being able to see what's to come as part of this amazing community and organization as we continue to tackle prostate cancer. I've been going back through memory lane lately, and I remember really, sort of that first 4 or 5 years of being involved in the cause and the organization. I think of some of the challenges. One of the basic challenges was having a lot of patients or a lot of family other members saying something like, "What do you mean? I have a prostate? What is that?" And to imagine, how far we've come as a national community, as a cause, to educate more patients about their risk awareness and early detection and the advancement of treatments. And I think about sort of those next 4 or 5 years of breaking the organization, out of helping break the organization out of that DC mold of we're mainly a membership organization that was sort of fueled by some of these other groups in those early days. So breaking out of DC, being able to change the name and reaching out across the country, and not just being in DC, which is really important, but bringing people involved, like sort of those Walmart dads across the country, and really starting to build community, and then diversifying our programs and starting the Run Walk series to be able to build more and more of the community. And all of them had their fair share of head scratchers to overcome. Now, looking ahead, Courtney, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges facing the prostate cancer community as you step into this role?
Well, from what I've learned so far and what I know about cancer care and the cancer care continuum, as well as the healthcare system as a whole, I think the biggest challenge facing the prostate cancer community that I've seen so far is one that many diseases and healthcare challenges are facing, and that's equity. I mean, let's be honest. And I know that let's just address the elephant in the room, right? Like, first of all, I'm a woman that's been tasked with leading a prostate cancer organization. I am a white woman. But I go back to my work when I started in Atlanta, right? And we know that Black men are presenting with prostate cancer up to like 2 years earlier. They have more aggressive disease. They have higher mortality rates. They have less access to treatment. They have longer delays from when they are diagnosed to when they actually get treatment. These are systemic issues across the healthcare system in general. But they are really prevalent in driving, those over 35,000 deaths a year from prostate cancer. And so that to me is really where, if what we're trying to do is save lives, we will not be able to save lives unless we tackle that equity issue. And that is something that, we're not going to be able to do alone. One of the biggest things I remember when I called you, Jamie, and I heard about the job, and we chatted a little bit. And one of the things you talked about was the importance of really being sort of a thought leader and a convener, because we weren't going to be able to do this just by ourselves. This is not only a prostate cancer issue, it's a cancer issue, and it's a healthcare issue on the whole. You see the same things with diabetes and obesity and chronic health conditions, right? We have got to solve that issue, and we've got to tackle it. And again, things like 0360 and patient navigation and all of those are designed to be a band-aid to the bigger problem. And so it's a tough nut to crack. And it will have to be handled not only sort of globally, but my first CEO when I was at the Young Survival Coalition had a background in health insurance. And, she very smartly said to me, Courtney, all healthcare is local. And that's one of the challenges, right? Is why you need navigators and all of those things is every hospital system is different. Every state is different. Every insurance situation, what you can do in Texas is different than New York, is different in Oregon and Georgia. And so you can't just do a blanket fix. And, very smartly though, from the very beginning, she said, yeah, you're going to have to look at that. One of sometimes not just globally. And I think that's one of the things that Zero started to do really well as it relates to co-pays and co-insurance on prostate cancer screenings, on a state by state basis, because in some places you don't have to pay for it. In some places you do. And one of the things that I think is going to be important is for us to continue to sort of tackle those state by state issues. And I think that, that's how we start to get patient voice into advocacy work on a state level. So you can change some of those laws that can impact your day to day in your hospital and your urologist and your cancer center when you're walking in. And so I think those systemic challenges that come from a localized and state level system and how they impact equity. And then the flip side of that is how you partner in communities that haven't been getting those messages. And it's interesting, when I was applying for this job, I did a lot of research, and I did a lot of research on some of the biggest impacts to men getting screened. And there are, as I'm sure some of you caregivers understand, that, the push from your partner or your wife or your daughter has impacted that. And so understanding how we can also break down some of those cultural barriers to awareness is going to be important. I think that goes back to the Zero goal of being a household name. If we're really driving some of those messages, we can help get people in, and early detection is the answer. And so it's sort of easy to say, oh, it's early detection, but that is in many ways. And so, but it's got to be across the board. It can't just be that the people who already have access and already know who to call continue to get better and better care while leaving others behind. We've got to start with the others first.
Yeah, well said. And yeah, we've touched on early detection at the tail end, and I think everybody in the room knows that if we were able to really amplify the patient's voice and hear from them, there's a great balance that comes in with early detection and the right amount of treatment too,
Yes.
or and this way active surveillance. So being able to get that word out there to be able to determine, who has aggressive disease and who
Correct.
could wait a little while and see how it develps. Because if we
And I
can
think that's
master that.
yeah, and I think that's, as my dad is a great example. He is an active surveillance himself. And I think that's one of the things that we've learned, right? It used to be cancer was just throw everything at it. As a cancer survivor myself, when, going through, I got all the treatments almost 20 years ago. And if I were to be diagnosed today, there's probably about half of them, including chemotherapy, that I wouldn't have gotten. And but that message has got to translate, and it's got to translate into having those conversations with your doctor, so you know that that's an option. I am grateful that my father is in the position he is now versus years ago, where we know more, and we know not all cancer is the same. Not all prostate cancer is the same. And so knowing what you have to treat when, and what you can, you know, be watchful waiting, as it was talked about a few years ago when my dad first started, um, is important. And I think that's some of the stigma that I've learned is that fear. It's the fear of, oh my gosh, if I go in and something happens, here are all the things that could be done. And in reality, the earlier you find the disease, the more options you have to be less aggressive. And then, of course, that impacts quality of life. And, as a survivor myself, I'm a firm believer that more is not always better. It's about your quality of life. And I often tell people now, you've got to think about hopefully that long life you're going to live after this, and what do you want it to look like. And so quality of life is important, and that's how you create this. I mean, there's over 3 million men living with prostate cancer or who are survivors. And we want them to live and thrive to their fullest, whatever that means to them.
Let's check in with our champions, shall we? Paul out in Southern California wants to say hello and welcome. He's also a CDMRP, PCRP participant. Mike Hamlin is from Friday Harbor, Washington. I didn't even know that was a place until we had talked at one point. Mike, he says it's exciting to hear your passion, Courtney. And thanks to me and all I've done for Zero. Thanks, Mike. Sharon Rose is longtime champion. We'll just say more than a decade, Sharon, I think. Looking forward to working with you, Courtney, she says. Let's see, Susie says again, hoping for some additional action for the Patient Caregiver Advocacy Board in the future. Yes, absolutely. Jonathan Schwartz, who's a board member, says go Braves. I haven't seen go Cubs yet. Oh, but right after it, we got Tracy Cameron says go White Sox. Okay. How about White Sox?
I don't know. I don't know if I can. I'm not sure if I can buy into that one, but I appreciate the sentiment.
Oh, it's Don Williams chiming in again with so not only does he live in Atlanta, but he's from Chicago too.
Yes.
Are you two related?
Those are really right there.
That is interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. Terry on staff says she's from Chi-Town too. Courtney woohoo. Let's see. Hey, Sharon. Let's see. Paul Kennedy says, welcome from Fort Worth, Texas.
Nice.
Thanks for joining us today, Paul. Josh Wood is on staff. Another Josh says he's from Chicago and calls Atlanta his home now too. Are you guys pranking me? Like,
Yeah, it's and Josh and I met for the first time a couple weeks ago, and he lives around the corner from my house, so it's a real small world.
it is a really small world. I didn't even know that like Atlanta's like the East Coast Chicago.
Atlanta is sometimes like the LA of the South. There are a lot of transplants here.
Well, I mean, it's sort of like the second Hollywood too, isn't it? Like it's kind
It
of like
is.
a bit of the East.
We like to we don't refer to it as Hotlanta anymore. That's not cool. But you can call it Yollywood if you'd like.
Okay.
That is what it is sometimes called.
And speaking of the East Coast, Yollywood, is that what you said?
Yeah, like as in Hollywood, but y'all, we would. There we go.
Love it. Any truth to the rumors that you've been involved in TV or anything like that?
Yes, there are truth, and in fact, it's a story connected to what's happening right now in the industry. So I used to, I was a scriptwriter for television many moons ago. And I used to write for All My Children, the soap opera. And I was going about my business, stealing babies and having people coming back from the dead and evil twins and things like that. And it was during then that I was actually diagnosed with cancer myself. And it was interesting because I was a young adult who had not had health insurance for about 5 years because, I was going to live forever until I became a writer for television and became part of the writers union. And I got insurance, and 6 months later I was diagnosed with cancer, and my insurance paid something like $600,000. And so, a few years later, the writers went on strike, much like they are right now. And it was during that strike period that I'd been doing a lot of volunteer advocacy and a lot of volunteer work in the cancer community here in Atlanta. And I started to sort of do that kind of full time because I was waiting to go back to work. And back then there wasn't the industry here. There are picket lines all over Atlanta actually now, but when it was back then, it was just me and like the TNT building and like 2 people, and it was really sad. So I started to do a lot of volunteer work, and it was in working in the cancer community that I sort of realized that was kind of where I had my true calling. And so when the strike was over, and they were going to they were talking about contracts and this and that, and I realized it just wasn't where my heart was anymore. And so that first CEO, that first mentor who sat me down one day and said, I'm going to teach you your roadmap to being a national CEO. So shout out to Marcia Stein, who was the first person to help me get on this journey. And, she said, hey, why don't you take this position? And I thought to myself, wow, I'd love to work 3 times harder and make a third of the money. So why don't we move into nonprofits? And the rest, as they say, is history. But yes, I used to write for All My Children. Yes, I know Susan Lucci, and yes, I have stories, but that's for another time and another day.
And yes, we're going to rewrite an ending to prostate cancer for sure.
Love it.
Paul Lewandowski in the room. Thanks for representing New England, fellow New Englander here. He just got asked to be on the CDMR panel this year again. Let's see, Ted's going on his 3rd year on the CDMRP panel. We started everybody chiming in. Let's see. Florian Menninger asked, do you have experience in working to protect us from healthcare insurance issues? As you may know, health insurance companies find ways to boot us off health plans.
I do. I've done some advocacy work on both the state and the national level. In terms of, and again, this is where insurance becomes a state by state issue, right? Although there are some things and protections in the ACA. the Affordable Care Act, but those are a little bit at play right now. And so I'm really excited to learn more. Obviously, I haven't officially started, and I know about this much yet about what Zero is doing, but I do really am excited to kind of dig into that advocacy agenda and learn what partnerships we have and where certain things are at risk. But again, that goes back to the challenge of that's not a prostate cancer issue. That's anyone with a pre-existing condition issue. And those of us with pre-existing conditions, I mean, I've taken jobs and turned down jobs because of what the healthcare options are. And so it is something that is deeply personal to me. But I have worked in some of, when I was at JDRF, we did similar work as well. And so I'm excited to kind of dive into seeing what we can do and where's our agenda, and then what partnerships we have to try and make lives easier for patients.
Wonderful. Vivian Avery is a dear friend of mine. Coming up on Times at the Summit. It's going to be coming up on 10 years. She's in Kansas City with her husband, John. We have a great group of Zero champions in Kansas City. She says, hope to see you at the Kansas City race. I think that's coming up in September here. Let's see, lots of wonderful messages. Hey, Sherry, former board member, a longtime friend. I just heard Courtney address caregivers, including partner, wife, daughter, and not mother. That has pervaded prostate cancer discussions for decades. So I know that Courtney had brought up your son is 14. I have a son who's 14. So while I'm not a mother, but I'm sure that you can be able to bring that perspective of him being at least at risk.
And I think it's one of those things, I mean, in my own personal family, obviously, because of our deep history with cancer, and again, the cancer that started actually with myself and my brother in our 20s, those kinds of conversations around going to the doctor, talking to the doctor, asking questions. In fact, just yesterday, I was on the phone with my father, and I was spiritedly having some discussions about some follow-up questions he needed to have with his doctor. And, in any situation, those caregivers are not only the ones who are providing that physical and emotional care, but they're the second set of ears. They're the ones who ask the questions. I know when I was first diagnosed, everything after that was like, I don't remember any of it. And it was my husband at the time, and it was my family who really helped guide and make that journey easier. Because anytime you hear you have cancer, like it's hard to hear anything else after that. And so that's why it's so important. Again, speaking of sort of equity and things, is there are some people who don't have those people in their lives. And so how do we fill the gap? And how, I think that sort of peer support in 0-360 is really important, because nobody should go through cancer alone. And you don't have to. And I think that's why organizations like Zero are so important.
Now, there's a lot of chatter around early detection, almost virtually 100-year survival rate. 100%. Would not be great. 100%.
100 years, right?
Yeah, 100% 5-year survival rate if prostate cancer is caught early. And being able to, going back to talking about just for a second, so we're coming up on the hour here, but any thoughts that you want to look into or explore in terms of trying to increase screening among those who need it most, those who are at high risk, those who are going to really benefit from early detection?
Yeah. So one of the things for me, and I, not having, normally I'd say I've been here for 30 seconds, but officially I haven't even been here yet, is I'm really excited to learn more about our work in the communities that sort of need us the most, right? So it goes back to equity. And we know that Black men and people of color are more at risk and have more challenges on the whole navigating the healthcare community. And so for me, one of the priorities for me is going to be to understand the landscape. Like I said, I know the cancer landscape pretty well. And I'm just now learning more about the prostate cancer community and the healthcare landscape. So again, I'm a learner. So I want to learn more about what it looks like. We have an amazing, VP of Health Equity and his team. And I know that that's been a particular focus for Zero recently. But to me, it goes back to identifying partners and elevating voices who can be the most effective. There will be places where me will not be the most effective at helping to drive that. One of the things that I talked about when I was meeting with the board was when it comes to driving change in those communities and systemic change, it's all about who has a seat at the table, and you've got to make sure that everybody who needs to be has a seat at the table. But more importantly, to carry that analogy is you've got to help them write the menu. And so for me, I want to hear from the communities and our partners who are working locally and systemically, or with communities of color, or advocates on behalf of the system, to hear more about what that menu should look like, and let them, sort of teach me and then lead me in that way. So maybe that's the really long way of saying I'm not sure yet. But I'm really excited to hear from the people who have been in the weeds and in the trenches doing the work. And then I see my role to help facilitate that success. So to me, leading is setting a vision, and it's setting goals and pushing us for success. But sometimes it's also stepping back and sort of pushing from behind to elevate the people who we really need to hear from. And sometimes that's not going to be me.
That's true. I want to say hi to Robert Alexander Sr. He says, well, welcome, Courtney, from Memphis, Tennessee. I feel your passion because you've got skin in the game. Thanks, Robert. That was nice to say. I do want to get to one more question. I know we're up on the top of the hour, but we're gonna hang back for a minute after we close down. That way you can look through everybody's comments and compliments to you coming on board, because I haven't been able to get to everyone's to read them all out, but there's some really great ones in here. But I do want to ask, you've got 50, 60 something champions in the room. How can, as a Zero champion, I'm a Zero champion, how can we help you in this transition and taking these first steps?
That's a great question. So first of all, I think you can help by meeting me, introducing me. I'm going to try and get where I can, but I'm going to interact. We're going to have more opportunity to do some things online, and shoot me an email, or Courtney at zerocancer.org. If you got an idea, shoot it to me. There are no crazy ideas. I think one is I want to meet you. Share your story. The more I can understand the issues at play, people's experiences, the better I can understand the organization, the situation, the culture. So I want to hear your story. So those are sort of some simple things. No, after that, I think if you're obviously all already involved. So I would say two things. One is, especially if you've been involved for a while, take a second and go, okay, is there somebody that I can introduce to this organization that I haven't already? So, and what does that look like? Does that look like coming to the summit? Does that look like coming to an event? Does it look like becoming a support group leader? What does that look like? You all are doing such amazing things for the organization. And the answer is we need more of you. The work is done through this volunteer partnership. So if there's somebody that you're like, hey, like I haven't yet pulled the trigger to bring them on in, bring them all in. And then of course, if you look at my background, I'm a fundraiser. So I'm always going to say, go participate in an event, raise some money, write a check, get involved. There is no mission without the money. So we'll need to do that to make it happen. But I think the first thing is just, I want to hear your stories. And I want to hear how we can engage with you. This champions group is unique. It's an amazing sort of collection of event fundraisers and summit advocates and donors and volunteers. And I know one of the things that the organization is looking at is how do we best utilize this amazing army of supporters and advocates. And so if you have thoughts on that, I want to hear it. Because really, it is the power of your voices that are going to make the change more than what happens at the staff level.
I love it. So reach out to Courtney at Courtney@zerocancer.org and share your story. And let's keep bringing people in and elevating them to champions and get them involved. Because as Sean says in the chat, Zero champions are amazing volunteer leaders. And here's one emerging one, Katie with her husband, Scott from Minnesota. And this is pretty amazing. They're doing an 11,000 mile cycle trip around, literally not around the country, but like around.
I have heard that.
That's incredible. I can't even 11,000 miles. I probably can't even bike 11 miles right now. So that's phenomenal. Everyone, thanks for joining us and welcoming Courtney and giving her a nice warm welcome. Thanks for the questions and all of the sweet comments and the chat section. It's wonderful. And Courtney, I want to say congratulations again on being the 5th Zero president and CEO in our 36-year history. I've got your back. I'm here for you and the team and all of our champions and the community every step of the way. And I'll always be here to help out in any way that I can. But the future is bright with having you at the helm at Zero. And welcome.
Thanks, Jamie. And I know the other thing you all can do is make sure that these next 2 weeks before Jamie departs are the most amazing Jamie for a World Tour ever. So connect with him because he has been sort of, Zero's heart and soul for so many years that I am just blessed to follow in your footsteps, Jamie. So I'm excited to see what you're going to do in the future as well.
Thanks, Courtney. I appreciate it. And thanks everyone for joining us.
Thanks everyone. Have a great night.